Something feels off in the U.S. economy today. Not in a dramatic headline way, more like the signals you normally trust aren't lining up the way they should. Here's the problem: 3 signals don't agree. Confidence is fading, growth looks warmer than expected, and the Fed is standing right in the middle deciding how tight is tight enough. So this isn't going to be hype, fear, or prediction theater. I'm going to give you a clean way to read what's happening so you can stop reacting to noise and start tracking what actually moves the story. We start with consumer confidence, because it changes behavior before the hard data rolls over. When confidence trends down, spending doesn't vanish overnight, but the willingness to take risk quietly disappears first. The latest reading is 84.5. And the number matters less than what it represents. Households are increasingly unsure about what normal looks like in the next few months. And if expectations are sitting around 65.1, that's the part to watch. Low expectations don't always cause a recession, but they create a fragile mood, where small shocks can hit harder than they should. This is how it shows up first: not panic, hesitation. People delay big purchases, like cars, because a high monthly payment feels heavier when the future feels less certain. And then it spreads into upgrades. Even if income is stable, households get picky: do I need this now? Becomes I can wait. That's the kind of subtle shift that slows the economy without sounding like a crisis. Now here's the twist: growth trackers still look warm. So while households feel cautious, the macro data, at least the near-term tracking, doesn't scream slowdown yet. For example, GDP trackers are pointing around 5.4%. Again, this isn't a final GDP print, it's a right-now estimate based on incoming data. And that's exactly why it's confusing. The now looks fine, while the mood looks worse. So this is the mismatch: cautious households but warm momentum. Both can be true at the same time, because confidence often moves first, and growth measures often react later. This doesn't mean one side is wrong. It means timing matters, and the economy can look healthy until the lagged effects finally show up in spending, hiring, and credit. Could this be noise? Yes. One bad confidence print doesn't rewrite the economy. But if this gap persists: weak confidence, warm growth, that's when behavior changes, and behavior is what eventually shows up in the hard data. And then the Fed steps onto the stage on January 28, 2026. Because when the signals conflict, policy tone becomes the tiebreaker. Markets start asking, will the Fed lean into the strength, or respect the fragility? Markets don't just react to the rate decision. They react to one sentence, one phrase that tells you what the Fed is worried about, and what it's willing to tolerate. Listen for the emphasis: inflation first or jobs first. If the Fed sounds inflation first, it's a message of discipline. If it sounds jobs first, it's a message that the downside risk is growing. And even one word can move everything: restrictive. Not just whether policy is restrictive, but whether the Fed thinks it's restrictive enough or not enough. That enough is where the market reprices the future. Here's the dangerous part: when confidence is fragile, perception alone can add volatility. Nothing has to break. It's enough for people to believe something might break, then they act differently. That's when narratives whip around. One day it's soft landing, the next day it's hard landing, and the market starts moving more on interpretation than on facts. So instead of guessing, here's the clean 72-hour watch list. 3 simple checks that tell you whether the story is stabilizing or sliding. First, watch bonds before stocks. Rates usually move first. Second, track Fed tone. What they emphasize matters more than the headline. Third, watch whether confidence stabilizes or keeps sliding, because that's the signal that changes. If you want, I'll post a follow-up right after the Fed statement. Same framework, updated signals. No hype, just data.